Claire, I need to tell you something before this goes any further.
Say it after. Not now. Not here.
I can't wait until after. If anyone here objects to this union, speak now.
I do. I object.
Rachel, sit down.
I can't. Not this time. I'm in love with him. I have been for months. And he's in love with me too. Say that again. Say it to my face. I just did. Tell me she's lying, Daniel.
Claire.
Say something. Anything.
Claire.
Don't.
Claire, wait. Let me drive you.
I need to go, Dad. I just need to walk.
On the morning I was supposed to become his wife, I found out my own sister had been sleeping with my fiancé for 8 months. I was still in my wedding dress when he told me it was over. I want you to imagine that for a second. The dress your mother helped you zip up that morning. The flowers already dying a little in the heat. And the man you loved, standing in front of 200 guests, choosing someone else while you were still holding your bouquet. By the end of this story, you might find yourself asking what you would have done in my place, and whether love like that can ever really be trusted again. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Claire Bennett, and for 29 years she believed her life was finally coming together. She grew up in a small house outside Columbus, Ohio, the quiet daughter, the one who did her homework early and never asked for much. Her younger sister Rachel was the opposite. Rachel was loud, magnetic, the kind of person a room turned to look at. Their mother used to joke that Claire got the patience and Rachel got the shine. Claire never minded. She loved her sister fiercely, the way older sisters do when they've spent their whole childhood making sure the younger one was safe. She had no idea that the same devotion would one day be used against her. Claire met Daniel Sinclair at a charity gala she almost didn't attend. She worked as an architect at a mid-sized firm in Chicago, and she had gone that night only because her boss asked her to represent the company. Daniel was there because his family's real estate empire had donated the building the event was held in. He noticed her standing near the window, away from the crowd, sketching the ceiling beams on a cocktail napkin out of habit. He asked what she was drawing. She said she was fixing a structural flaw nobody else in the room could see. He laughed, and something about the way he looked at her, like she was the most interesting person there, made her forget for a moment that men like him rarely stayed interested in women like her. They dated quietly for almost 2 years. Daniel was careful with her in a way that surprised people who only knew his public reputation. He remembered that she took her coffee with too much cream. He learned the name of her childhood dog. When he proposed, he did it in the same building where they met, on the same spot by the window, and Claire cried so hard she could barely say yes. Rachel was there that night too, holding the ring box for Daniel before he got down on one knee, smiling so wide their mother took a photo of her instead of the couple. Nobody thought anything of it at the time. Why would they? Rachel was family. Family didn't do the things Rachel was already doing. The wedding planning brought Rachel and Daniel together more than anyone expected. Claire was buried in work, finishing a hospital project that ate her evenings and weekends, so she asked Rachel to help coordinate vendors, taste cakes, meet with the florist. She trusted her sister with the most important day of her life because that is what you do when you love someone. What she did not know was that Rachel had been unhappy for years, quietly comparing her own unstable relationships to the steady, golden life her older sister seemed to be walking into. Envy is patient. It does not announce itself. It simply waits for an opening, and Rachel found hers in a florist's back office in April, when Daniel came to approve the centerpieces and Rachel stayed behind after he thought everyone else had left. What started as one conversation became a habit. Then the habit became something neither of them could easily name out loud. Daniel would later say it happened slowly, the way a person doesn't notice a room getting dark until they can no longer read the page in front of them. He told himself it was nothing, a moment of stress before the wedding, and then he told himself it would stop. It did not stop. For 8 months, while Claire chose her dress and wrote her vows in a notebook she kept in her nightstand, her fiancé and her sister carried a secret that would eventually tear through 3 lives at once. If you were Claire, would you have wanted to know sooner, even if the truth came at the cost of the wedding you'd already paid for? The wedding day arrived on a bright Saturday in June. Claire remembers the smell of the peonies in her bouquet and the sound of her father's voice cracking when he saw her in the dress. She remembers thinking she had never been happier in her life. What she did not know was that an hour earlier, in the groom's suite down the hall, Daniel had been pacing, phone in hand, staring at a message from Rachel that read simply, "I can't watch you marry her. Not after everything." He did not answer it. He told himself he would get through the ceremony and figure out the rest later. Some decisions, though, refused to wait. The ceremony began. Claire walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and for a moment, everything was exactly as she had dreamed it would be. Then, as the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, Rachel stood up from the second row, her hands shaking, and said she could not let this happen without saying something first. The room went silent in a way rooms rarely do. Claire remembers turning to look at her sister and thinking, absurdly, that Rachel must be about to cry happy tears, the way she did at every family milestone. Instead, Rachel said the words that ended the wedding before it truly began. She said she was in love with Daniel, and that he had been in love with her too, for months. If this story has your heart racing right now, comment, "I'm still watching," and let us know if you think you could have kept your composure standing where Claire stood that day. Claire did not scream. She did not cry, not at first. She stood frozen at the altar in her white dress, staring at the two people she trusted most in the world, waiting for one of them to say it was a cruel joke. Daniel did not deny it. That silence told her everything. He walked toward her, reaching for her hand, and she stepped back instinctively, the way you flinch from a stove you already know is hot. 200 guests watched as she turned and walked out of the church alone, her bouquet still in her hand, her father chasing after her while her mother stayed frozen in the front pew, unable to decide which daughter needed her more. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Claire's life. She moved out of the apartment she shared with Daniel within 3 days, taking only what fit in her car. She could not look at her phone without seeing missed calls from her mother, who kept trying to explain that Rachel was going through something, as if that excused 8 months of betrayal wrapped inside a wedding day. Claire took a leave of absence from her firm. She stopped answering texts from mutual friends who wanted the details. She spent most nights on her best friend Monica's couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how she had missed something so large happening right in front of her. She began to wonder if trust itself had been the mistake, if loving people fully was simply an invitation for them to eventually hurt you. Daniel, for his part, did not find the happiness he expected on the other side of his decision. Within 2 months, he and Rachel were living together in his penthouse, and within 4, the relationship had already begun to crack under its own weight. Rachel, it turned out, had built her entire pursuit of Daniel around the idea of what Claire had, not around who Daniel actually was. She grew possessive, comparing herself constantly to the sister she had replaced, accusing Daniel of still thinking about Claire every time he went quiet. He was thinking about Claire, more than he wanted to admit. He kept replaying the moment she stepped back from his outstretched hand, the way her face had gone still instead of furious, as if some part of her had already accepted a loss she hadn't seen coming. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, the truth about why Rachel had done what she did finally came out, and it was far more calculated than anyone imagined. A close friend of Rachel's, feeling guilty, reached out to Claire and told her that Rachel had not fallen into the affair by accident. She had pursued Daniel deliberately, months before the wedding, after finding out that their late grandmother's inheritance had been split unevenly in Claire's favor because Claire had spent years caring for her during her illness. Rachel had convinced herself that taking Daniel was a way of taking back what she believed she was owed. It was never really about love. It was about a wound she had let fester for years, one she chose to heal by destroying the thing her sister valued most. When Claire heard this, something in her both broke and settled at the same time. It explained the years of small comments Rachel used to make, the jokes that weren't really jokes, the tension Claire had always excused as sisterly rivalry. It did not make the pain disappear, but it gave her something she hadn't had before, which was clarity. She realized she had spent months blaming herself for not being enough, for missing signs, for somehow failing to keep the two people she loved most from choosing each other over her. Now she understood the truth was never about her worth at all. It was about a resentment that had nothing to do with anything she had done wrong. Daniel found out the same truth around the same time, from Rachel herself, during an argument that had been building for weeks. She admitted, in anger, that part of her had wanted Daniel because taking him from Claire felt like justice for years of feeling second best. Daniel sat with that confession for a long time after she left the room. He realized he had built an entire second life on a foundation that was never about him at all. He thought about Claire's notebook full of vows he would never hear, the coffee she took with too much cream, the way she used to fix things in her mind before anyone else noticed they were broken. He understood, far too late, that he had let a version of love that was easy and flattering replace one that had been quiet, steady, and real. It took Daniel nearly a year to work up the courage to see Claire again. He did not call first. He showed up outside the hospital project she had gone back to finish in, the one she had been working on the week of their wedding, and he waited in the parking lot until she came out. Claire remembers seeing him and feeling her whole body go tense, bracing for the anger she assumed would come rushing back. Instead, what she felt was something closer to grief for the version of him she used to trust completely. He apologized, not with excuses, but plainly, telling her he understood if she never wanted to speak to him again, and that he mostly needed her to know the truth had cost him more than she probably realized. Claire did not take him back that day, or that month. She told him, calmly, that trust was not something you could apologize your way back into, that it had to be rebuilt slowly, if it could be rebuilt at all. What surprised her was that Daniel accepted this without pushing. He did not show up with grand gestures or public declarations, the kind of thing that might have worked on someone less careful than Claire. Instead, he simply became consistent, in small, unglamorous ways, over many months. He respected the distance she asked for. He never once brought up Rachel to compare the two of them. Slowly, almost against her own instincts, Claire found herself willing to let him back into small parts of her life, one honest conversation at a time. As for Rachel, the fallout was its own kind of reckoning. Their mother, who had spent months trying to smooth things over between her daughters, finally told Rachel the truth, that what she had done could not be excused by old wounds or inheritance disputes. Rachel lost her relationship with Daniel, and for a long time, she lost her relationship with Claire entirely. It took over a year, and a great deal of therapy on Rachel's part, before the sisters spoke again, and even then, their relationship became something new and far more careful than what it once was. Some bonds, once broken this deeply, do not go back to what they were. They become something else instead, smaller, more guarded, but not always beyond repair. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, Claire and Daniel married quietly, in a small courthouse ceremony with only a handful of guests. There was no elaborate dress, no crowded church, no room for anyone else's resentment to find its way into the day. Claire says now that the second time around, she did not marry the same man she almost married before. She married someone who had been forced to understand exactly what he stood to lose, and who had spent 2 years proving, in small daily ways, that he understood it. She does not know if she would give the same advice to every woman who has been betrayed the way she was. She only knows that for her, healing did not come from revenge or bitterness, but from slowly deciding what she was willing to trust again, and on what terms. So here is what I want to ask you. If you were standing in Claire's place at that altar, watching your own sister stand up and take the moment that should have been yours, what would you have done? Would you have found a way to forgive, the way Claire eventually did, or would some betrayal simply be too deep to ever fully move past? And if you were Daniel, knowing what you know now about why Rachel really pursued you, would you have made the same choices, or would you have seen through it sooner? Tell us in the comments what you would have done in her place, and whether you believe love that survives a betrayal like this can ever truly be trusted again. And if this story moved you, wait until you hear what happens in our next story, where a woman discovers the inheritance her family kept hidden from her for 20 years was never lost at all. Subscribe for more real, emotional stories like this one, so you never miss the next story that might just stay with you long after the video ends.